short time since I was welcomed to the orchestra, and I can't believe that 30 years has gone by already. But I'm very honored to be here, and thank you very much for everything, and to the League. I can't thank you enough for your support. In thinking about what I might say today, well, first, I want to point out that I'm very honored that I'm here with my mother, who was here. When I was introduced as a member of the Chicago Symphony, my mom was along, and then just under 2 years ago, I got married to Gita. Sorry. And she's a wonderful singer and a wonderful companion. And we got married here in the ballroom, so that was the last formal occasion I was in. I feel like I should not say anything, and I should let her sing for you, because she's a wonderful soprano. But I was thinking about how important the Chicago Symphony has been. Sorry. To me in my whole life. The first concert I ever saw here was when I was 5, and Walter Handel was conducting the orchestra, and I know that they were playing The Love for Three Oranges by Prokofiev, because Handel from the podium tossed 3 oranges out into the audience. Kind of an indelible memory. And I remember that the interior of the hall was Wedgwood blue with white trim. That I remember very specifically. And anyway, as a lifelong Chicagoan, and I'm proud to say that, although I grew up in Morton Grove, but I was born in Chicago, my mom and dad are from Chicago, the orchestra was always there to inspire me. And I eventually got a chance to join the Civic Orchestra, and I worked in sectionals with Frank Miller, and I will never forget those years with him. And then I had a number of teachers who were all former Chicago Symphony members. So the existence of this orchestra was so important to my development as a musician and a cellist. I studied with Lenny Chauceau, who was a member of the cello section for many years, and Margaret Simpson, who was the wife of Wilbur Simpson, who was a bassoon player here. She was a marvelous cellist and teacher. I studied with her. I also studied with Harry Sturm, who was assistant principal cellist here for a number of years. And then I met Carl Frew, who was a cellist here in the orchestra in the 1940s, just for a very short time. But still, all this Chicago connection has been just incredible and very inspiring. And after I started studying with Frew, I started jobbing in Chicago and freelancing, and I met all these guys who had been members of the orchestra at one point or another. And the most significant, perhaps, was a gentleman named Teddy Ratzer, who was born in 1899 and who died, I think, around 1990. But he was the first person that Frederick Stock brought in from the Civic Orchestra to the Chicago Symphony. He never auditioned for the CSO, but he was Stock's principal cellist in the Civic, and Stock liked what he heard, and he said, next season I want you in the orchestra. And that was it, and he was in the orchestra for 37 years, from 1920 until 1957, and then he stayed in the Chicago area, and I met him when I was beginning my career in freelancing, and I met him mainly doing ballet gigs and also working at the Mill Run Theater, which no longer exists, at Niles. But you know, he would sit there and he would play the Frederick Stock cello concerto for me. I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, it's this wonderful cello concerto that Frederick Stock wrote." And I swore at that point that I would someday play that piece, and it finally came true for me around the year 2000 or something like that. There was a community orchestra here in Chicago conducted by a high school teacher of mine, and he said, you know, you want to solo with the orchestra? And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to, but should we do something different? And he said, yeah, what kind of different piece have you got? And I said, well, there's this concerto by Frederick Stock. And he was game to try it out. And I'm thankful to Peter Conover, yes, sorry Peter, because he got the parts. The parts were here in the library. It's never been published, and I had to get permission from Stock's great-granddaughter, who came to the performance, by the way. And but anyway, there's all this connection, with Chicago. And even though I left the city for 9 years to play in other orchestras, because that's just the way it worked out. I was for 4 years principal cello in Winnipeg and then 5 years in Cleveland. I always wanted to come back to Chicago. And I finally got here, and it's been a thrill and a joy ever since. And I'm especially moved right now to have Maestro Muti as our director and leader, because he is such an advocate for classical music, for the orchestra, for culture. It's just been overwhelming to have a man like this at the helm. And I just can't thank him enough. I wish he were here so that I could thank him. I mean, I've already spoken with him about that, how thankful I am for all that he's said about the orchestra. He's given us a dignity as players, which well, was not always there. At least it didn't always feel that way. And I'm just so pleased that he has elevated the orchestra and helped us to be proud of what we do. And anyway, it's just been an amazing experience. I can't thank you all enough for your support through the years, because the orchestra, it touches the lives of so many people, and it can inspire and touch the lives of musicians who are aspiring to be in an orchestra like this. I can't believe I got here. I remember I said that to Schulte when he hired me. He said, "I want you to be in the orchestra." I said, "I can't believe it." He said, "Believe it." Anyway, sorry to be so emotional about this, but it's just been a thrill for 30 years, and I can't thank you all enough. My colleagues are wonderful. John and Anne have already been mentioned. They're wonderful to work with, and the management, everybody who's responsible for keeping this orchestra running. It's just so important, and I think it's important for the city. Before Schulte came, everyone thought of Chicago as the hometown of Al Capone. "Oh, you're from Chicago?" That's the kind of reaction that people got. And so now, it's Chicago, it's the home of the Chicago Symphony. And I'm very proud to be part of it.